Man, that seat is getting hot for some people. The Saints have fired their coach. We got four more people that we're looking at this weekend with the side eye. We'll talk about that here on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It is your team every day, and we thank you for making us your first listen here on Locked On NFL, where you get a double dose of the stories that help you understand your teams better with the use of local experts. I am the host of the Locked On NFL show, Tony Wiggins, the barber, joined today by my man David Harrison, and here's what we are going to go over. The Steelers making right moves, all of the right moves, impact from all of the people that they've gone out and made decisions about. The Chiefs' greatness, it shouldn't even be in question right now, but it is because of the way they win in these games. And the seat is hot for four coaches in particular. It might be even more than that. We'll talk about those guys and whether or not those jobs are up for grabs on this weekend. But first, we'd like to welcome you again to the show and understand that we appreciate you being here and every day for us on Locked On NFL. Make sure you tap in each and every day. Today's sponsor is FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And I'll get started right now with my brother, David Harrison, Locked On NFL, Locked On Commanders, and all of that. He has a winning team that he roots for, and I don't. So we're going to sit here and try to find a little bit of a middle road here to talk about things going on today. Your coach, your team had a hot seat situation last year. They really hit a home run with Dan Quinn. It looks like the Jags, Saints, Jets, and Cowboys are probably looking towards next year already too, Dave.
Yeah, man. Look, and that's the time. That's the part of the year we're in right now, right? We've got teams and fan bases looking forward to the NFL draft. And we've already got some coaches that have been fired. I mean, you just talked about one of those jobs, New Orleans Saints. That's a job that, the head coach has already lost it. And now, coach is trying to prove that he's got the riz. I'm sorry, I had to do that. That he's got what it takes to stay the new head coach of the New Orleans Saints, right? And look, I like the dude. I like Coach Rizzi. I think that his personality is cool. That's the best analysis I can give you of him as a head coach. But getting his first win is obviously big, and you never know what kind of things can happen there. We saw the Raiders, turn an interim head coach into a permanent head coach, so perhaps that's there as well. The Jacksonville Jaguars, I think, Wig, and I hate to pile up on you because I know that's the team you got to cover. So Locked On NFL is like your opportunity to get away from all that madness. But let's go back to when they re-signed Trevor Lawrence, right? And I mentioned to you, I said this might be the next New York Giants Daniel Jones contract because they didn't have to do it when they did it. They still had time on Trevor Lawrence's contract. They could have let him play it out. They could have let it see kind of how it goes, but they went ahead, pulled the trigger. And yeah, there's this theory of like, well, if he balls out in 2024, then that contract goes even higher in 2020. I get all that. But the bigger risk, it's a good risk to have to pay your quarterback more because he's a baller than it is to overpay your quarterback early and have him flounder. Right now, Trevor Lawrence is not. He's looking like the next Daniel Jones. I hope he pulls out of it. I hope the Jags find a way to pull out of it. But that job is obviously absolutely got to be up for grabs. The Dallas Cowboys job has got to be up for grabs. That Chicago Bears job, I mean, if all the reports that are coming out are true, the players basically forced Eberflus to fire their offensive coordinator. They want Caleb Williams benched. Like that whole Ryan Poles job needs to be hot as well, not just the head coach job. That nobody should be safe in Chicagoland right now.
Yep, you're right. And I like Ian Cunningham. I like the assistant GM up there. I like Ryan Poles as a GM, but it's not just about hiring, finding players. It's about building a staff to navigate that ship. And somebody else has failed at that too, and it's the New York Jets. We ain't forgot about them in their situation, but they're stuck with their guy. Listen to my man John Lee up with the Jets.
New York Jets fans should be furious after a pathetic effort in Arizona. I'm John Lee, host of Locked On Jets, and the New York Jets were humiliated by the Arizona Cardinals in Week 10 action. The final score was 31-6. A week ago, against the Houston Texans, the Jets played a great second half. They claimed they had turned their season around. Well, It led to a pathetic performance. With 3 extra days to prepare, the Jets showed absolutely nothing in this game. They showed zero heart. They showed zero effort. The Jets on defense allowed the Cardinals to do whatever they wanted with the ball. They did not get a stop until the fourth quarter of this game after it was well out of hand. On offense, there's no other way to put it. Aaron Rodgers looks finished. Devontae Adams did nothing for this team. This was a completely terrible performance by the New York Jets in a game where they had a chance to get their season back on track. For more on the Jets, tune in to the Locked On Jets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
They don't have a quarterback in sight, but they got one that's their team leader, Dave, and he's the worst leader among players I think I've ever seen in my life. So you're seeing the difference between a team that is team-centric and a team that is player-centric. And I like player-centric teams, but those players also have to be good leaders. And when you're Aaron Rodgers, that's not what you are. This is the disjointed effort that you get when you don't fix all of that stuff the right way.
Yeah, and I mean, look, this might be the worst job in the National Football League.
No doubt.
For whoever is going to be the next head coach here, because again, you have Aaron Rodgers, and obviously you have a team that is not together. You have a team that is far from unified. I watched that Jets win, and I heard the broadcast saying, "Oh, like this is where they could get hot. This is the Packers offense of old," and da da da. I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, if y'all are not some hyperbolizing MFers I've never heard, like, let's calm the heck down. It's one game. It's one, and it's not even a full game, right? Like he just said, it's a half. It's one half of football. We've seen one good half of football, and Aaron Rodgers, for all of his, we got to stop listening to the media. Brother, I'll tell you right now, there were a few media outlets saying, oh, the Jets are back. Most of us still were not saying, oh, the Jets are back. Y'all believe that. Y'all talked about that. Y'all drank your own Kool-Aid after one half of good football, and that shows. And this team has quit from the top down. And here's the problem. Let's say, I mean, honestly, right now, I think the best thing for Aaron Rodgers to do for the New York Jets is to retire. That is the best thing for him to do. Here's the problem. The dead cap figures still come to roost when a player retires. Tom Brady and the Buccaneers went through that when he retired. $49 million in dead cap is what Aaron Rodgers carries next year. On a New York Jets bank book, that's already 21st in salary cap space. Jeez. So you're already near the bottom of the league in cap space. You got a quarterback that you're either going to have to bow down to because that's the only way anything's going to work there, or is going to hit your bank for even more. And if he does that, you're going to have receivers that are just unhappy. And I mean, it's just a mess, man. It is just a mess. And I put it on whoever agreed to let Aaron Rodgers come in there and have that amount of control in the first stinking place. Like that's who that is on. If that's Woody Johnson, so be it. If it's Robert Saleh, so be it. But whoever agreed to let Aaron Rodgers have that amount of control, because I'll tell you right now, the happiest dudes in that Jets or the happiest, go back to the beginning of the season. The happiest people from that beginning Jets organization are Robert Saleh and Mike Williams, two dudes who are no longer part of that team because they got out of that mess. And now, as everybody continues to watch this dumpster fire continue to smoke and smolder and flame on without them, they can all say, look, it wasn't me. Mike Williams out here playing 9 snaps, catching a game-winning touchdown. So it definitely wasn't Mike Williams.
It was not. And they just dumped the wrong cargo. You know what I'm saying? They dumped the wrong cargo, man. And when they got rid of it, they ended up in a destination where they needed the stuff that they dumped because they did it with their eyes, man, instead of with their mind. And that thing, you have to think this thing through if you're a leader, and that's what you're supposed to do. I'm going to tell you who always thinks it through. The Chiefs. They think it through. They see things happen before they happen, and they don't make any excuses because all they do, I'm going to sound like DJ Khaled and T-Pain. All they do is win, 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 no matter what. We're going to discuss that as we move forward here on Locked On NFL. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. They are America's #1 sports book because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, and you can check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Today's show is also brought to you and sponsored by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the #1 fantasy. That's right. Daily fantasy sports site in the country. You can get down and start winning you some of that Skrilla along with the 10 million other people that play it every single week. But the difference is you're not playing against all 10 million of those people or even a big bunch of them. You're just playing against Prize Picks. Download the app and use the code Locked On NFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup by using the code Locked On NFL, all one word. Now, all you got to do is pick more or less and get anywhere between 2 and 6 player projections right. And guess what? You win. You can win up to 100 times your money. Just go through, look at the rules, and get it figured out. Make sure you download Prize Picks and use the code Locked On NFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. I rolling along here with my brother David Harrison of Locked On NFL. David's all over the place, man, covering that beautiful, beautiful team he has up there in the DMV, while the rest of us sit and figure out what we got going on. They don't have to figure that out in Kansas City because Kansas City is constantly winning. And I think folks get caught up in the how they're winning as opposed to the fact that they are winning. And then Joe Marino made a good point on the AFC South show that goes on every week. Make sure you check out the AFC and the NFC, man. These squad shows are really, really good. Joe Marino made a very good point, and I'm going to listen to it and let you comment on it.
Yeah, the Chiefs are great. There's no question about it. They're the best team in football, and they're 9-0 for a reason. It's because they're awesome, and their defense has been better than their offense the last couple of years. And to the point of that was made already, they have been ahead of league trends with even the evolution of Patrick Mahomes from a big play machine searching for those big throws down the field to no, we're just going to get yards after the catch, get the ball out of his hands, and when he's got to put the cape on a couple times a game, he puts the cape on a couple times a game, and they keep winning. Here's the thing that you're forgetting about the Kansas City Chiefs, and maybe you're really not forgetting it, but you're not applying it to what's actually happening. They've won the last 2 Super Bowls. They've won 3 of the last 5. They've been to 1 million AFC championship games in a row. This is the measuring stick for the NFL. Every team shows up to play Kansas City and gives them their very best shot. They empty the tank. It's what they want. They want to beat the Chiefs. And guess what? 9 times in a row this year was not good enough. And
so many people trying to copycat them. What they're doing is they're doing to other people what people should be trying to do to them. That's put your quarterback in a good situation and only make him be Superman when he has to.
Yeah. Listen, this game is all about competing, right? And when you're competing, it's all about being the best. And when you want to be the best, it's all about beating the best. Like as a fighter, if you're fighting the 12th ranked fighter in your boxing association, whatever you're in, you're not going to come at that guy as hard as you're going to come after Mike Tyson, right? Nope. Like you are always going to pick it up a notch. And when you look at people talk about, well, Kansas City Chiefs lucked into a win over the Denver Broncos. And in some ways, I understand why you're saying that, but understand this. They kept Sean Payton. Sean Payton is the master of drawing up offenses against every defense in the National Football League. We saw him work the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. We've seen, just go back even to his days in New Orleans Saints, like this dude knows how to draw up attack plans, right? And they kept Sean Payton's offense from scoring. He had opportunities, right? But they put 14 points up on the board, had the opportunity, still wasn't going to score over 24 points, which in my opinion, in today's NFL, 24 points is kind of that mark. Like if you don't score at least 24 points, you can't have a realistic expectation of winning that game. The Chiefs win 16-14. Yes, there's block kicks and all these other things, but understand that what the Chiefs just did against their opponent as well matters just as much as what opponents are bringing them. But Joe Marino makes a great point, man. Every single week for the last 3 years plus, right? It's basically the same thing the Patriots went through. And I know this is a divisional matchup this last weekend, but you look at non-divisional matchups, coaches love to say like, no, it's just another week. It's just another game. So the Buffalo Bills are going to come through like, yeah, we had a lot of great battles, playoff battles, all that stuff. But, we want to win this game because it's a regular season game. And, the fact that the Chiefs isn't any more important. That's what McDermott is going to tell you. But the players know. And if you're in that locker room, you watch them. They're more locked in. They're more energized. They're more focused. They're more hungry than they ever will be for the rest of the regular season until they get back to the playoffs and try to do it again. So it absolutely matters who you're playing. The best teams are internally motivated. We want to bring our juice no matter who we're playing. But even those teams pick it up another notch when it's the Kansas City Chiefs. That's just human nature. So I think that's a very valid point. And the fact that the Chiefs have been able to deflect 9 straight best efforts from their opponents absolutely is worth talking about.
Yep. We look at the style. I look at the substance. The substance is the same thing that it's always been. They are winning. And when they go in the locker room, they don't sit there and talk about how they were winning or what they could have done better. They just say, we ain't done yet. We got work to do, but we still won. And that's what matters. I'm going to stick right here with Denver, right there in that division. You made some good points about Sean Payton. And that's why I'm going to make a good point about Sean Payton. With all due respect to Dan Quinn, with all due respect to Dan Campbell, Mike Tomlin, a certain Kevin O'Connell, of course, Andy Reid. And I just mentioned all of the dudes that are having a lot of success this year. Some you're used to it. Some you're not quite used to it. I'm going to put it out there right now that Sean Payton deserves some love for Coach of the Year. And that's not just because I thought Denver was going to be bad. That's because I think Denver is just playing way better than a lot of people expected. And they're not looking at their own credit report. You know what they're doing? They're going out there and doing exactly what you said. They're trying to scheme it up and win. Listen to the guys from the Squad Show talk about the Broncos.
The Broncos, I think as much as I hate to say it, as Sayer and Cody know, I am Broncos public enemy number one. I take shots at the Broncos as much as I can. You know, even though I should be thanking the Broncos for getting Tannehill in for the Titans in 2019. But look at the Broncos schedule here. Like, they play the Falcons this week. I am absolutely picking the Broncos to beat the Atlanta Falcons. They're a much tougher football team. Then they get the Raiders. Then they get the Browns. Then they get the Broncos. Then they get the Chargers. Then the Bengals. And they get to play the Chiefs in Week 18. And unless the Chiefs are going for an undefeated season, the odds are the Chiefs are going to be resting people there. I absolutely don't believe that the Bengals are 100% going to beat the Denver Broncos here. They have a 1-game advantage already.
So listen to this point. If you'd have went back or gone back 5 years ago and said, name me the 5 best coaches in the NFL, Sean Payton would have been one of them. That's just the way it's always been, right? If you go back 2 years or 3 years of college football, say, name the 5 best coaches in college football, Jim Harbaugh would have been one. It is not a coincidence that you put them in that division and they are both scaring the hell out of the bottom teams, and they're going to be a nasty team to play in the playoffs because they both know how to get this done.
Yeah. So as far as the Sean Payton Coach of the Year conversation then goes, I agree with Tyler in the sense that you got to look at the Broncos schedule, but not in the way that he's kind of slanting it, right? So I look at this as quality wins. And if you look at the Broncos schedule, they have 1 quality win that comes against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Week 3. And look, that's not just quality win. They beat the Bucs by a lot, 26-7. And that's just Sean Payton once again showing that he might have left the NFC South, but he still owns the NFC South. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the time were 2-0, come off a win against the Detroit Lions, the quote-unquote best team in the NFC. So that's a very high-quality win. But the rest of their wins, man, Jets, Raiders, Saints, Panthers, but you lost to the Steelers, you lost to the Chargers, and the Chargers, that team is now ahead of you in the AFC West because of that win, right? Like, if you win that game, you're in second place. Because you lost that game, you're in third place. That matters to me. You lost to the Ravens, you lost to the Chiefs. Those are some tough games. But to me, you got to beat somebody. You got to beat more than one team that is in the upper half of their division. So you look at that Falcons game. That Falcons game is huge. And Sean Payton, like I said, he still owns the NFC. Look, he's 3-0 against the NFC South right now.
There you go.
If he beats the Falcons, I'm more on board. Beat the Chargers the second time. Beat the Bengals, even though the Bengals aren't necessarily top 2 in their division either. If you win those 3 games, if the Broncos beat the Falcons, the Chargers, and the Bengals, you don't even have to. You should beat the Raiders again. You should beat the Browns. Should beat the Colts. You don't even have to beat the Chiefs in Week 18. If you do that, then I will get on the board on the boat of Sean Payton definitely deserves some Coach of the Year conversation. Absolutely.
I thought with Bo Nix starting and with the fact that I, along with a lot of people, assess their draft and their roster as one of the 3 worst in the league. So it might be just me trying to validate, my wrongness by over giving him an award. But I also watch the way that they play. And I think that the future bodes well for them because I don't believe in moral victories, but they did play real well against all of those good teams that they lost to for the most part.
Yeah. And they got guys bought in.
Yeah, they outperformed themselves.
That matters.
Yep, it really does matter. All right. We mentioned the Steelers. We're going to talk about the right moves that they made. They made 3 critical moves, and it seems like they've all, well, 2 of them have paid off already, and the other one has a real good chance to pay off because of an injury. We'll discuss that here on Locked On NFL. Today's show is brought to you and sponsored by Game Time. Never fret when you're late buying tickets because you didn't get paid on time or you had to make sure you waited until all of the other bills were done. You will never hear someone say that your lack of planning is not my emergency at Game Time. Game Time takes your lack of planning as not only their emergency, but it's what they do because they prioritize and specialize in last-minute tickets. They have a curation process that will cut through all of the fluff and get right to the tickets that you're interested in. And then they have seat views, lowest price guarantees, and all of that stuff. So you can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code. I'm going to spell it for you. It's LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, segment number 3 here on Locked On NFL. Talking about everything about the NFL that interests you on these days as we're heading towards or getting into the real meat of the second half of the season, almost Thanksgiving time. So, it's time for football to be played at a very, very high level. And the Steelers have managed to do that all season. Like Denver, it hasn't looked the greatest, but like Pittsburgh, we expect it to not look good sometimes. And we always expect them to have a winning record. Mike Tomlin always has. He never has a losing record. In almost 20 years or somewhere between 15 and 20 years of coaching that team, never had a losing record, right? And I always say this, the greatest sports stat of all time, other than Wilt Chamberlain, of course, is the fact that these dudes have, in my life, they've only had 3 head coaches in 55 years, and they all won a Super Bowl. That, for me, continues to be the most amazing thing. But they're also making master moves this year. You mentioned Mike Williams, caught a touchdown pass first game, hadn't been there a week, big touchdown pass in a very, very close contested game against the team that you cover, 28-27, one of the games of the week. Then they make the decision to play Russell Wilson, which opens up their offense and their passing game, and now they're looking like unadulterated geniuses for doing that while still having buy-in from a quarterback that you can invest in the future at probably a reasonable price if that's what you want to, in Justin Fields. The third thing is this. I haven't really seen it yet, but they traded for Preston Smith. Mm-hmm. They did it, and I was like, why did they do that? And then their outside linebacker, Highsmith, the other great part of their pass rushing duo, gets hurt. It just seems like they are the masters right now of getting things right when they have to, David.
Yeah, and you really feel for Highsmith, you know what I mean? Like, when I saw him go down on the field there, I was like, oh, man, like, you just hate seeing good – I mean, you hate seeing any football player, right? But you really hate seeing – good football players go down. Najee Harris had an injury earlier in that game where he tried to get up and couldn't walk at first. I was like, oh man, like, tell me this dude did not tear his ACL. Fortunately, he came back in the game. Unfortunately for the Commanders, but fortunately for Najee and fortunately for me as a human being, because I'm a human. But the Steelers now, they look back at that Preston Smith trade and they go, man, like, what timing and what good fortune for us. And look, Preston Smith played 23 snaps in his first game as a Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Williams played 9. So 31 combined reps between the two guys. So not a lot of early contributions, but significant. It wasn't about quantity. It was about quality. Again, Mike Williams brings out that touchdown. Preston Smith, 3 tackles. But within those 3 tackles, a sack, 2 tackles for loss, and the quarterback hit. Preston Smith did the best you could with those 23 reps. So the Pittsburgh Steelers have to feel really good about this is what this man does, like you said, with less than a week of being in our scheme and playing with his teammates and doing all these things. And if you saw Preston Smith talk to the media after he got to Pittsburgh, he was through the roof. He just flat out said, I was not a fit for what happened in Green Bay, what was going on with Green Bay. Green Bay changed their defense this season. And he's like, me and that defense just didn't fit. We just didn't work out, no hard feelings. Admitted that he asked for a trade a couple weeks prior to actually being traded. That was all kept quiet. So that just speaks to the professionalism of him, his agent, the Packers, and they just worked on getting the best deal. And the Steelers are obviously reaping the benefits of it. But Wig, I also want to give a shout out, because we never do this, but I want to give a shout out to the NFL schedule makers. And you couldn't predict this, but we got 3 games this weekend. counting Thursday. I know Thursday not a weekend, but we have 3 games this weekend.
Yes, sir.
Featuring a matchup of teams that has 7 or more wins. And according to Adam Schefter of ESPN, I got to give credit where credit is due. That is the most in a week 11, and at the time of week 11, that in NFL history. We have never witnessed a slate of games this good. We have the Washington Commanders and Philadelphia Eagles Thursday night. Are the Commanders really this good? Is Jane Daniels a lock for Offensive Rookie of the Year versus are the Philadelphia Eagles really back matchup? Great, sexy divisional matchup. Then Sunday afternoon at 1 p.m. Eastern, you got Ravens and Steelers. Enough said. Then you got 425. So right after the Ravens and Steelers are done, flip it right over to Chiefs Bills, and you got 9-0 versus 8-2. So not only do we have 3 amazing matchups this weekend, you have no hindrance in watching any of the 3. You can, if you're a football fan, you can watch all 3 of those games. And no disrespect to Seattle Seahawks, Niners fans, Falcons, Broncos fans, I might just watch the Chiefs. Well, Broncos are not watching the Chiefs. I got it. But even if I'm a fan of another team playing at the same time, I might watch those games anyway. So get your Red Zone channel ready if you got it. But man, I just want to give a hat tip to the schedule makers because this week worked out beautifully for them.
Hat tip, man. We've seen the Ravens and heard about their jubilation all year. A lot of y'all haven't really seen the Pittsburgh Steelers as much. So I'm going to introduce you to my man who'll be here tomorrow. That's Chris Carter talking about his win. A couple of years, David, talking about his win this past weekend in Washington.
Hey everyone, Chris Carter here from the Locked On Steelers podcast, giving you your post-game reaction to the Steelers' 28-27 victory over the Washington Commanders to advance to 7-2. The Steelers found a way to gut this game out despite several up and down moments. They went for it on 4th down with a fake punt that was wide open, but it was dropped by James Pierre. They were at the goal line in the 4th quarter looking like everything was going their way. Jalen Warren fumbled at the 1-yard line and gave the ball back to the Commanders. But the Steelers stuck in there. Russell Wilson completely clutch in this game. 3 touchdowns to 1 interception. All 3 touchdowns had to be had, including the last touchdown pass, a beautiful throw to Mike Williams, the Steelers receiver that they traded for just before the trade deadline. And the Steelers defense doing just enough to keep the Commanders off the board late. It's a big, huge win for the Steelers, who now are in first place of the AFC North, playing the second place AFC North team, the Ravens, next week. But I'll have all your breakdowns of the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter. Check us out on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube.
I'm going to ask you to go ahead and preview this since I won't see you before that. Everyone keeps talking about the best teams in the league, and they're saying that Detroit would be favored against anybody in the Super Bowl with the exception of KC and Baltimore. They're not even mentioning Pittsburgh. Does Pittsburgh have a chance to really make a statement this weekend, in your opinion?
They do. I think they do. You know, the thing about the Baltimore Ravens defense, you know, and I think they've been doing better here in more recent times, but they're susceptible through the air. There's a reason that the Washington Commanders came out against the Baltimore Ravens earlier this year with a very heavy pass attack strategy, and it nearly worked, right? Like the score looks a little bit further than the game flow did, but the game flow it nearly worked against the Baltimore Ravens. And what does Russell Wilson do best? He throws deep balls to the perimeter of the field, and that's what they're going to try to do. Najee Harris can certainly do some things, but people don't realize the Pittsburgh Steelers are also one of the more heavy run game, run or ground attack teams. You know, they're not leading the league in yards per carry or anything like that, but they are towards the top of the league in yards per game. It's because of how much they run the ball. They are going to try to put up points, and then they're going to try to choke the air out of that game. It's going to be a heavyweight contest. You know, obviously not having Highsmith is going to hurt for that Steelers defense going up against King Henry. But, you know, I do think that this could be a really good matchup. And, you know, it's one of those games that even if, you know, everybody, again, the Ravens are the team, you know, they're the cream of the crop and all that stuff. But even if the Steelers lose this game, it kind of reminds me of when the Commanders lost to the Ravens. They can lose this game and still come out with more people saying, okay, look, this team could be for real. So it's just one of those really interesting games. Now, if the Ravens come out here and boat race them, conversation might change a little bit, but I don't see that happening.
No, I don't see that happening either, man. So, yeah, like you said, 3 really, really good games on slate this weekend, and I'm surprised nobody's real hyped about that Lions-Jaguars contest. Woo, that highly thought of contest up in Michigan, man. I mean, you know, ain't nobody looking forward to that one like they're looking forward to the other 3, man. But you can look forward to Locked On NFL every single day. Tyler Rowland hits you in the morning. The Madman will let you know what it is, right? With a double shot of espresso slapping you right across your head early in the morning with the use of local experts. And we do the same thing right here at the barbershop, smack in the middle of the day. So make sure you tap in. David Harrison, get to it. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy your weekend, man. And we'll see you all here again on Locked On NFL.